The ship screamed as it tore through the atmosphere. Marcus Chen gripped the controls with both hands, his knuckles white against the metal, sweat pouring down his face as warning lights flashed red across every screen in the cockpit. The ion storm had come from nowhere, appearing on his sensors only seconds before it slammed into his scout vessel like a giant fist. Now he was falling toward the orange desert planet below, all systems failing, the hull temperature climbing past critical levels. Come on, he shouted at the ship, pulling hard on the manual override, trying to level out the descent. The computer was dead, the automated systems were dead, everything was dead, except for the emergency battery and his own desperate will to survive. Zareth 7 filled his viewport, a world of rust-colored sand and jagged crystal formations that jutted from the ground like broken teeth. He had been surveying this sector for 3 months, mapping uninhabited systems on the outer rim, far from any human settlement. This planet was supposed to be empty, lifeless, just another rock to mark on the charts before moving on. The ground rushed up faster than he expected. Marcus had time for one final thought, a memory of his daughter's face back on Earth, before the impact drove everything from his mind. Metal shrieked and tore. The ship hit the desert floor and skipped like a stone on water, once, twice, 3 times, before finally plowing through a dune and coming to rest in a shower of sand and debris. Marcus hung upside down in his restraints, blood running down his forehead into his eyes. Pain bloomed across his chest and ribs, sharp and hot, telling him that something inside was broken. His left arm hung at a wrong angle. The taste of copper filled his mouth. He fumbled with the harness release with his good hand, finally managing to trigger it, and fell hard onto the ceiling, which was now the floor. Every breath hurt like knives stabbing between his ribs. He looked around the ruined cockpit, searching for his emergency kit. The main hull had cracked open during the crash, and through the gap he could see orange sky and feel wind that burned his exposed skin. His suit's environmental readings made his stomach drop. The atmosphere was 70% nitrogen, 25% carbon dioxide, 5% sulfur compounds. Toxic to human life. His suit was already compensating, recycling his air, but the display showed red warnings about multiple breaches. He had maybe 2 hours of breathable air left, probably less with his labored breathing. Marcus dragged himself toward the emergency supplies locker, leaving a trail of blood on the twisted metal. His medical kit was there, intact, and he pulled out a pain injector and pressed it against his neck. The relief was immediate, but he knew it was temporary. He needed real help, needed a medical facility, needed to be anywhere but here. His comm system was completely destroyed. The distress beacon might have sent out a signal before the storm hit, but the nearest human outpost was 3 weeks away by fast ship. He would be dead in hours. The reality of it settled over him like a heavy blanket. Marcus Chen, 42 years old, decorated scout captain, father of one beautiful daughter he would never see again, was going to die alone on this orange hell of a planet. He laughed, and the laugh turned into a cough that brought up blood. "Not how I planned it," he said to the empty ship. The pain medicine was making him lightheaded now, or maybe that was the internal bleeding, or maybe it was the toxic air starting to seep through his suit's failing seals. He made himself move anyway, crawling through the gap in the hull and out onto the sand. Direction: endless and empty under a sky that was the wrong color. Crystal formations rose from the dunes like frozen waves, catching the light of the distant sun and throwing it back in sharp orange reflections. Beautiful and deadly. He had made it perhaps 20 meters from the wreck when his legs stopped working properly. Marcus collapsed onto his side, his vision starting to darken at the edges. This was it then. He found himself thinking about Earth, about green grass and blue sky, about the smell of rain and his daughter's laugh. Strange how the mind goes to small things at the end. Through his fading vision, he saw something moving. At first he thought it was a hallucination, his dying brain creating comfort where none existed. But the figure grew closer and more solid. Tall, impossibly tall, at least 7 feet from the ground. The body was humanoid in basic shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but the similarities ended there. The skin, if it could be called skin, seemed to be made of crystal or glass, translucent and reflecting the orange light in prismatic patterns. Colors flowed beneath the surface like liquid rainbows. The being had no face as Marcus understood faces, just smooth crystal with 2 indentations where eyes might be. It wore no clothing, needed no clothing. Its body was a work of living art. She, Marcus somehow knew it was female, though he couldn't say why, stood over him and looked down. He tried to speak, but his voice came out as a whisper. "Help," was all he managed. The crystal being tilted her head, and Marcus heard a sound like wind chimes, musical and strange. She seemed to be considering something, debating with herself. Then she knelt beside him with a grace that seemed impossible for something made of hard crystal. Her hand, 3 long fingers and a thumb, all translucent and glowing from within, toward his chest. Marcus wanted to pull away but couldn't move. The hand pressed against his chest plate, and he felt warmth, incredible warmth, spreading from the point of contact. She made another chiming sound, and her hand began to glow brighter. Then she opened her palm, and Marcus saw liquid there, silver and thick, like mercury, but alive, pulsing with its own light. It moved across her palm like it had a mind of its own, flowing in patterns that hurt to watch. Before he could understand what was happening, she pressed her hand hard against his suit, and the liquid forced its way through the material, through the breach, against his bare skin. The pain was immediate and total. It felt like his blood had turned to fire, like every cell in his body was being torn apart and rebuilt. Marcus tried to scream, but his voice was gone, tried to fight, but his body wouldn't respond. The liquid metal spread through him. He could feel it moving, under his skin, racing through his veins, wrapping around his bones. His back arched off the ground, his eyes rolled back in his head. The crystal being held him down with surprising strength as his body convulsed. The last thing Marcus saw before darkness took him was her featureless face looking down at him, tilted in what might have been curiosity or concern. The last thing he heard was the sound of his own heart, beating faster than it should, beating to a new rhythm, beating with the pulse of the liquid metal that was rewriting everything he was. Then nothing. Just darkness and the distant sound of crystal singing in the wind. Consciousness returned slowly, in fragments. Marcus became aware of sounds first, a constant humming that vibrated through whatever he was lying on. Musical notes that rose and fell in patterns that almost made sense. Then came sensation, the feeling of something cool beneath his back, smooth and hard like polished stone. He tried to open his eyes and found that the light hurt, too bright, too sharp, every color more vivid than it should be. When his vision finally adjusted, he saw a ceiling of crystal above him, geometric patterns flowing across its surface like living geometry. He sat up fast, too fast, and expected pain from his broken ribs and injured arm. The pain never came. Marcus looked down at his hands, and his breath caught in his throat. His skin was wrong. It still looked like skin, still had the basic color and texture he remembered, but there was something else now. A faint metallic sheen that caught the light like oil on. He held his hand up to his face and saw colors moving just beneath the surface, blues and silvers flowing through his veins like rivers of liquid metal. "What?" he started to say, and his voice sounded strange in his own ears, rougher, with an odd resonance like someone speaking in a large empty room. "You are awake," came a voice, and Marcus turned to see the crystal being standing near what looked like a doorway. Her voice came from a small device she wore on what might have been her wrist, translating her chiming sounds into words he could understand. "What did you do to me?" Marcus demanded, standing up on legs that felt strong, stronger than they should after what he had been through. "I saved you," she said simply, her tone carrying no emotion, just fact. "The water of my people, the sacred fluid that runs beneath our world, I gave it to you. It was the only way to prevent your death." Marcus looked around and realized he was in some kind of chamber, walls and floor all made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. There were no visible seams or joints, as if the entire room had been grown rather than built. "Where am I?" he asked. "Beneath the surface, in the city of my kind," she replied. "You have been unconscious for 3 of your days while the transformation completed." "Transformation," Marcus repeated, the word tasting like poison. "What transformation?" The being moved closer and gestured at him with one crystal in hand. "The water does not simply heal," she explained. "It rewrites, rebuilds, changes the fundamental structure of cells to match our world. You could not survive in our atmosphere before. Your carbon-based biology was incompatible. Now you can breathe our air, process our minerals, withstand our radiation." Marcus felt his chest breathing in and out and realized with growing horror that it felt different. His lungs were working, but not the way they used to. The rhythm was slower, deeper, like breathing water instead of air. "I don't need oxygen anymore," he said, not a question but a realization. "No," she confirmed. "Your blood chemistry has changed. Your cellular structure has been altered at the most basic level. You are hybrid now, part carbon like you were, part silicon like us." "I'm not human anymore," Marcus whispered. "You are alive," she countered. "Without the water, you would be dead and rotting in the sand. I made a choice to save you, against the protocols of my people." Marcus wanted to be angry, wanted to rage at her for changing him without permission, but the truth was, she was right. He would have died screaming and alone. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Synthesis," she replied. "It is the closest translation to the harmonic designation my people use. Of the deep waters, one who tends the sacred flows." "Marcus," he said, pointing to himself. "Captain Marcus Chen, Human Expeditionary Fleet, Scout Division. Or at least I was." Synthesis tilted her head in that curious way he remembered from before. "Come," she said. "I will show you what you have become." She led him through corridors of singing crystal, past chambers where other beings like her moved with fluid grace. Some turned to look at him as he passed, their blank crystal faces somehow conveying surprise or shock. He must look as alien to them as they did to him. They came to a chamber with a pool of liquid metal at its center, the surface perfectly still and reflective like a mirror. "Look," Synthesis instructed. Marcus approached the pool and saw his reflection. His face was still his face, the features he recognized from 42 years of looking in mirrors. But his eyes were different, taken on a metallic quality, reflecting light like polished silver. His skin had that same faint sheen he had noticed on his hands. When he opened his mouth, his teeth looked slightly translucent. "My temperature," he said, pressing a hand to his neck. "It's wrong. I'm cold." "Your new biology operates at lower thermal levels," Synthesis explained. "You no longer need to maintain the high heat that carbon life requires. You also no longer need organic food. Your body now processes minerals and trace metals." Marcus felt his stomach, realized he hadn't felt hunger since waking. "What else?" he asked quietly. "You can withstand extreme radiation that would kill your former self in minutes," she continued. "You are stronger. Your bones have been reinforced with silicon compounds. Your senses have expanded. You can now perceive harmonic frequencies we use for communication." As if demonstrating, she made a sound. Marcus suddenly heard it, not just with his ears, but felt it resonate through his entire body. Understood meanings layered within the tones. Your ship's communication system was destroyed, Synthesis said, switching back to the translator. But I recovered some components. I have been attempting to repair a distress beacon, but the technology is unfamiliar. Show me, Marcus said. They went to another chamber, where pieces of his ship lay scattered. He recognized his comm panel, crushed, but possibly salvageable. His hands moved over the components, with a familiarity born from years of experience. But as he worked, he noticed something strange. His fingers were more nimble than before, able to make precise adjustments without tools. When he concentrated, he could almost feel the electrical currents running through the circuits. After an hour of work, he had to admit defeat. The damage was too extensive, and even if he could fix the beacon, it would take weeks for any response to reach him. I'm stuck here, he said. Yes, Synthesis agreed. And my people, they will not welcome you. The elders already debate whether you should be allowed to live. What? Marcus turned to face her. Why? You are contamination, she said bluntly. A mixing of carbon and silicon life, something that should not exist. Many believe you are an abomination that disrupts the purity of our world. Marcus felt anger rising. I didn't ask for this, he snapped. I didn't ask to be changed. No, Synthesis admitted, and I am sorry for that. I acted on instinct, on curiosity, perhaps on loneliness. My people do not often feel compassion for other forms of life. We are isolated by our very nature. But I have studied the stars, wondered what other minds might exist out there. When I saw you dying, I could not let that potential be lost. The translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in her voice, but Marcus heard it anyway, in the underlying tones. She had saved him not just physically, but because she wanted connection, wanted to know what it was like to touch another form of consciousness. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Tomorrow the Council of Elders will pass judgment, Synthesis said. They will decide if you live, or if they correct their mistake. Correct, Marcus repeated darkly. You mean kill me? Yes, she said softly, that is what I mean. Marcus looked around the crystal chamber, at his changed hands, felt his altered heartbeat. He had survived the ship crash, survived transformation, and now faced execution by a species he had never known existed. Then I guess I better figure out how to convince them I'm worth keeping alive, he said. Synthesis made a sound like breaking glass, and through the translator came something that might have been a laugh. That would be preferable, she agreed. I did not save you only to watch you die again. Marcus nodded, and looked back at the scattered pieces of his ship. He was no longer human, no longer entirely himself, but he was alive. And as long as he was alive, he could fight. The council chamber was massive, carved from a single piece of crystal that rose from the deep places of the planet. Marcus stood in the center, while 12 vitrine elders surrounded him in a circle, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in patterns that made his eyes hurt. Each elder was larger than Synthesis, their forms more complex, with geometric patterns flowing beneath their surfaces that spoke of great age. Synthesis stood beside him, her translator device allowing him to understand the chiming debate that raged around them. This creature is pollution, declared one elder, their tone cutting through the harmonics like broken glass. It carries carbon corruption into our pure silicon world. We should dissolve it back into base elements and be done with this foolishness. The human was dying, Synthesis argued, her voice calm, despite the hostility. I acted to preserve a unique consciousness, to learn from a different form of life. Is that not one of our oldest principles, the pursuit of knowledge? Knowledge does not require keeping dangerous specimens alive, another elder chimed in. We can study its remains just as easily. Marcus listened to them debate his execution as if he were an interesting rock sample. His new hybrid senses picked up frequencies beneath their words, emotional content that the translator couldn't capture. Fear, mostly. They were afraid of him, afraid of what he represented, of change, of the unknown. If I may speak, Marcus said loudly. The chamber fell silent. You consider me contamination, he continued, an abomination that shouldn't exist. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am wrong by your standards. But I'm also proof that your world isn't as separate from the universe as you think. Carbon and silicon can coexist. They can even help each other. Empty words, the first elder chimed, dismissively. What help could a dying human possibly offer the vitrine? Marcus had been thinking about this all night, turning over everything Synthesis had shown him. Your seismic data, he said. Synthesis showed me the readings from your deep sensors. You're tracking tremors in the planet's crust. The elders shifted, their crystals humming with surprise that he knew about their monitoring systems. The tremors are normal, one elder stated. They come and go, harmless fluctuations. No, Marcus said firmly. I've surveyed 73 planets, studied geological patterns across dozens of systems. I know what normal seismic activity looks like, and this isn't it. He pointed at the floor, using gestures from habit, even though he knew they might not translate. Your tremors are increasing in frequency and magnitude in a specific pattern, he explained. They're building towards something big. Crystal quake that could collapse this entire chamber. You're basing this on what data? An elder challenged. On 3 months of readings filtered through alien understanding. On both kinds of understanding, Marcus corrected. Human pattern recognition combined with the harmonic sensitivity I inherited from your water. I can feel the resonances in the crystal around us, sense the stress building. Your people are so attuned to your world that you can't see the pattern clearly. It's too close, too familiar. I'm an outsider. I see it differently. Synthesis made a sound of interest. Explain further, she requested. Marcus moved to a wall and placed his hand against the crystal. Information flooded through him. Vibrations and frequencies that told stories of pressure and strain. Here, he said, the stress is accumulating in fracture points beneath the northern cavern network. Shock wave will propagate through the crystal lattice directly toward this city. I calculate you have maybe 10 days, maybe less. The elders conferred among themselves in harmonics too complex for the translator to parse. Finally, the largest elder, who Marcus assumed was the leader, addressed him directly. Even if we believed your analysis, they chimed, what solution do you propose? We cannot move the city. It has stood here for 10,000 cycles. You don't need to move it, Marcus said, thinking fast, pulling on every bit of engineering knowledge he possessed. You need to redistribute the stress, create controlled release points that bleed off the pressure before it builds to catastrophic levels. Human mining techniques use similar principles. We are not miners, an elder said disdainfully. No, but you're crystal singers, Marcus countered, remembering what Synthesis had told him about their abilities. You can shape and grow crystal through harmonic resonance. If we combine that with precise engineering calculations, we can create relief channels that guide the seismic energy safely around the city. We, Synthesis repeated. You speak as if you will be part of this. I'm the only one who can do both, Marcus said simply. I can run the calculations using human mathematics and physics, then help you translate that into harmonic patterns for the crystal singing. I'm literally built for this now, whether I wanted to be or not. The council fell silent again, their crystals pulsing with inner light. Marcus waited, his hybrid heart beating its new strange rhythm. Finally the lead elder spoke. We will test your prediction, they announced. If you are correct about the quake's location and timing, we will grant you temporary sanctuary. If you are wrong, we will correct our mistake in creating you. Fair enough, Marcus agreed, though his stomach twisted. How long do I have to prove it? 3 days, the elder said. If tremors begin in your predicted location within that time, we will proceed with your plan. If not, you will be dissolved. After the council dismissed them, Synthesis led Marcus to her personal chamber. The space was smaller than the grand halls, filled with curious objects she had collected from the surface. Broken rocks, strange metal fragments, even what looked like the fossilized remains of something that might have been alive millions of years ago. 3 days is not long to prove something that may take 10, she observed. I know, Marcus admitted, sitting down on a crystal bench that adjusted itself to his weight. But if the tremors start, where I think they will, when I think they will, it'll be enough evidence. And if they don't, then I die, he said bluntly. Least I'll die trying to help, instead of just begging for my life. Synthesis was quiet for a long moment, her crystalline form still and reflective. I did not give you the water only to watch the elders take that gift away, she said finally. I will help you in whatever way I can. Why? Marcus asked. Why did you save me at all? Why do you care what happens to me? She turned to face him fully, and though she had no expression he could read, her voice through the translator carried weight. Because loneliness is the same in any form, she said. Carbon or silicon, we all seek connection. I have spent my existence tending waters and studying stars, wondering what other minds might exist beyond our world. You are the first answer I ever received. Marcus felt something in his chest, an ache that had nothing to do with his transformation. I miss my daughter, he said quietly. I miss my home, my life, everything I was. But you're right, I'd rather be alive and changed than dead and gone. Then we will make sure you stay alive, Synthesis declared. Come, show me these calculations of yours. Teach me how human minds see patterns. They worked through the night cycle, Marcus scratching equations into crystal tablets with a stylus Synthesis provided, explaining concepts of stress analysis and fault mechanics. Synthesis listened and translated, finding ways to express mathematical relationships in harmonic frequencies. Slowly, impossibly, they found common ground between carbon logic and silicon song. On the second day, they felt the first tremor. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Marcus's hybrid senses caught it. He pressed his hand to the floor and felt the vibration running through the crystal lattice, coming from exactly the location he had predicted. There, he said triumphantly, northeast quadrant, 70 kilometers deep. Synthesis confirmed it with her own senses, then immediately sent word to the council. The elders arrived quickly, testing the vibrations themselves. He was correct, the lead elder admitted, their tone carrying surprise. The pattern matches his prediction. Then we proceed with the plan, Marcus said. We create the relief channels before the main quake hits. The elders studied him for a long moment. Very well, hybrid, they chimed. You have earned the right to try. But know this, if your plan fails and the city is damaged, your life is forfeit regardless. Understood, Marcus agreed. As the elders left to prepare, Synthesis placed a crystalline hand on his shoulder. You have bought yourself time, she said. Now we must use it wisely. Marcus nodded, looking at the equations spread across the crystal tablets. His old life was gone. His human body transformed into something new and strange. But he still had his mind, his knowledge, his stubborn human refusal to give up. If that was all he had left of his humanity, then he would use it to survive. The work took 6 days of constant effort. Marcus stood at carefully calculated points throughout the cavern network, while groups of vitrine singers surrounded him, their voices rising in complex harmonies that made the crystal walls vibrate and grow. He would calculate the precise angle and depth needed for each relief channel, translate it into harmonic frequencies with Synthesis' help, and the singers would reshape the crystal accordingly. It was exhausting work that left him drained by the end of each cycle. His hybrid body was still learning its capabilities, still adjusting to processing minerals instead of food, still figuring out how to rest without true sleep. But it worked. The channels they created spread through the crystal lattice like roots, forming a network that would distribute seismic stress across a wider area instead of concentrating it in one catastrophic break. On the 7th day, the main quake hit. Marcus was in there, central chamber, when it began. Felt the massive vibration rolling through the planet's crust like a wave. The floor buckled and crystal walls groaned with stress. For a terrible moment he thought they had failed, thought his calculations had been wrong. Then the relief channels activated. The seismic energy hit the first channel and split, flowing along the paths they had carved, spreading and weakening as it traveled. The main city shook, but held, crystal structures swaying, but not breaking. Minor cracks appeared in some walls, but nothing catastrophic. When the shaking finally stopped, Marcus found himself sitting on the floor, his whole body trembling with released tension. Synthesis appeared beside him, her crystalline form unmarked by the quake. "You did it," she chimed, and even through the translator he could hear relief and joy. "The city stands." The elders arrived soon after, inspecting the damage. Success. The lead elder approached Marcus where he sat. "Your analysis was correct," they admitted. "Your plan worked. The city suffered minimal damage, no loss of life. We acknowledge the value you have provided." Marcus stood up slowly, meeting the elder's eyeless gaze. "Does this mean I get to keep living?" he asked. "For now," the elder replied. "You have proven useful. However, you remain an anomaly in our world. The Council grants you sanctuary, but you must understand that many still see you as contamination." Before Marcus could respond, a sound cut through the chamber. It was mechanical, harsh, completely out of place in the crystal cavern. His ship's emergency beacon, the one he thought was destroyed beyond repair, was transmitting. Synthesis must have kept working on it while he focused on the quake. "What is that noise?" an elder demanded. Explained, his heart sinking. "It means a human ship is close enough to receive the beacon. They're coming." 2 days later, a vessel appeared in orbit. Marcus watched, on a crystal viewing screen that Synthesis had created, showing him images pulled from the Vitrine's sensor network. It was a military scout carrier, larger than his survey ship had been, bristling with weapons and comm arrays. The sight of it filled him with conflicting emotions: relief that humanity had found him, dread at what they would find. "They are attempting communication," Synthesis reported, "transmitting in your language, requesting identification and status." "I should respond," Marcus said. "They need to know I'm alive." "Are you certain?" Synthesis asked. "Your people do not know what you have become. When they see you—" "I know," Marcus interrupted, "but they came all this way. I owe them an explanation at least." The council had gathered again, watching the human ship with obvious concern. "If your people attempt to land, we will prevent them," the lead elder stated. "This world is ours. We do not permit invasion." "They're not invaders," Marcus said. "They're a rescue party, looking for one of their own. Let me talk to them." The elder considered, then nodded. Synthesis configured the crystal screen to transmit as well as receive. Marcus took a breath, preparing himself for what came next. "This is Captain Marcus Chen," he said into the pickup. "Scout vessel designation Alpha 73. I'm alive, but my situation is complicated." The response came quickly, a crisp military voice. "Chen, this is Colonel Voss, commanding UEFS Vigilant. We received fragments of your distress beacon. What is your status? Are you injured? Are you under duress?" Marcus looked at Synthesis, at the elders, at his own metallic-sheened hands. "I'm alive and relatively healthy," he said carefully. "But I've been changed. There is intelligent life on this planet. Silicon-based beings called the Vitrine. They saved my life after the crash." A long pause followed. "Say again, Chen," Voss's voice came back. "Did you say intelligent alien life?" "Yes, sir," Marcus confirmed. "They're real, they're peaceful, and they're very protective of their world. I'm requesting that any landing party approach with caution and respect." Another pause. Then Voss spoke again, his tone harder. "Chen, we're reading unusual energy signatures from your location." We're also picking up what looks like your biosigns, but the readings are off. We're sending a shuttle down for extraction. Prepare for immediate evac. Sir, I don't think that's a good idea, Marcus started. That's an order, Captain. Voss cut him off. You've been missing for 3 weeks. Whatever you've been through, we need to get you to medical immediately. Stand by for pickup. The transmission ended. Marcus turned to the elders. They're coming, he said. They won't listen. Then we will make them understand our position, the lead elder declared. No ships will land in our territory without permission. Please, Marcus said urgently, don't attack them. They're just trying to help me. Let me meet with them. Let me show them that I'm okay. Synthesis spoke up. I will accompany you, she offered. If both of our peoples are present, perhaps understanding can be reached. The elder considered. Very well, they decided. You may meet this colonel on the surface, but if they show hostility, we will defend ourselves. The shuttle landed on the same dunes where Marcus's ship had crashed weeks before. Marcus stood waiting, Synthesis beside him, while the ramp lowered and armed soldiers emerged. They wore full environmental suits and carried weapons ready, clearly expecting trouble. Colonel Voss was easy to identify, his rank insignia visible even through the suit. He approached cautiously, his weapon not quite pointed at Synthesis, but ready to raise in an instant. Captain Chen, he said, his voice coming through external speakers. Step away from the hostile. She's not hostile, Marcus said. Her name is Synthesis. She saved my life. Voss's eyes, visible through his helmet faceplate, were fixed on Marcus's face. Even at a distance, Marcus knew what he was seeing. The metallic sheen to his skin, the silver reflection in his eyes. What the hell happened to you? Voss breathed. I was dying, Marcus explained. The atmosphere here is toxic to humans. Synthesis gave me something, a liquid from her people. It changed me at the cellular level. I'm hybrid now, part human, part vitrine. Jesus Christ, one of the soldiers muttered. Voss raised his weapon slightly. Chen, you're contaminated, he said. We need to get you into quarantine immediately. Full biological containment protocols. I'm not sick, Marcus protested. I'm changed. There's a difference. That's not your call to make, Voss replied. You're coming with us for evaluation and treatment. Treatment, Marcus repeated. You mean you want to study me? Figure out how to reverse this? We want to help you, Voss insisted, and we need to understand what happened here. This is a first contact situation with potential biological weapons implications. Marcus felt anger rising. They're not weapons, he said. The vitrine are peaceful. They only changed me to save my life. Countered. But we have protocols for scenarios like this. You're compromised, Chen. You can't be objective about your own contamination. Synthesis made a chiming sound, and Marcus felt vibrations through the ground. The vitrine are monitoring this conversation, he warned Voss. If you try to take me by force, they'll intervene. Are you threatening us? Voss demanded. I'm trying to prevent a disaster, Marcus shot back. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The vitrine have technology beyond anything we've seen. They can manipulate crystal and energy in ways that make our weapons look primitive. And they're very protective of their world. Voss was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing his options. Then here's what's going to happen, he said finally. You're going to come with us voluntarily for medical evaluation. If you refuse, I'll report this planet as a potential biological threat, and Command will send a full military assessment team. Is that what you want? Marcus felt trapped. If he refused, humanity would classify Zereth 7 as dangerous, would send warships and scientists to study and potentially exploit. But if he went with them, they would treat him like a lab specimen, would try to reverse his transformation even if it killed him. There has to be another way, he said desperately. Synthesis placed a crystalline hand on his shoulder. Perhaps there is, she chimed. If your people wish to understand, let them understand. But Marcus must be free to choose his own path. He is not your prisoner. Voss stared at the crystal being, his expression unreadable behind the helmet. What are you proposing? He asked. A compromise, Synthesis replied through her translator. Study Marcus if you must, but here, on our world. Send your scientists, send your doctors. But respect that this is our territory, and Marcus is under our protection. He stays or goes as he chooses. Marcus looked between them, hope flickering. Would that work? He asked Voss. Could we make that arrangement? The colonel was silent for a long time. Then he lowered his weapon. I'll need to clear it with command, he said. But maybe we can find a middle ground. 6 months passed like water flowing through crystal channels. The compromise held, though it was fragile at first. Colonel Voss returned to orbit and spent 3 days in tense negotiations with both Earth Command and the Vitrine Council. In the end, they established what became known as the Zareth Protocol. Human scientists could visit the planet in small groups, no more than 10 at a time, no military presence beyond a single security officer, all weapons to remain in orbit. They could study Marcus, study the Vitrine, study the sacred water, but only with explicit permission. In return, the Vitrine agreed to share limited information about their civilization, and to allow Marcus to serve as mediator between the two species. Marcus stood now at the boundary between two worlds, literally. On one side was the crystal cavern entrance, where Synthesis waited with other Vitrine. On the other was a prefabricated human habitat dome, pressurized and climate-controlled for the comfort of the visiting scientists. He could exist comfortably in either environment now, his hybrid body adapted to both. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived on the 3rd research rotation. Marcus knew her name before he saw her face, had requested specifically that she be excluded from the program. His daughter was 20 years old now, a xenobiology student who had applied the moment she learned her father was alive. Command had honored his request initially, but Sarah was brilliant and persistent, and eventually she wore them down. She stepped out of the transport shuttle wearing a standard research suit, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail he remembered from when she was 12. Marcus felt his hybrid heart stutter. Dad, she said, and the word carried 20 years of history. She approached slowly, her eyes taking in his changed appearance. The metallic sheen had become more pronounced over the months. Skin now showed flowing patterns of silver and blue when light hit it certain ways. His eyes were fully reflective now, mirror-smooth and strange. Sarah, he managed to say, I didn't want you to see me like this. Like what? She asked, stopping a few feet away. Alive. Changed, he said. Not human anymore. She pulled off her helmet, breathing the filtered air of the habitat zone. You're still my father, she said firmly. The rest is just biology. Marcus felt something break inside him, some wall he had been maintaining. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I left, sorry I crashed, sorry I made you think I was dead. Sarah closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him. He was cold to the touch now, his body temperature 15 degrees lower than human normal. But she didn't let go. You came back, she whispered. That's what matters. Sarah worked alongside the other researchers, studying Marcus's transformation with scientific detachment that occasionally cracked to reveal the daughter beneath. She took samples, ran tests, documented every aspect of his hybrid biology. The changes are permanent, she told him after the first month. The silicon integration is complete. Your cells have found a stable state. Reversing it would mean rebuilding you from scratch, and we don't have that technology. I know, Marcus said. I've accepted it. Have you? She asked, watching him with those sharp dark eyes. Because you seem lost, Dad. Like you're trying to be human and Vitrine at the same time, and ending up as neither. She was right, as usual. Marcus had been existing in a strange limbo, translating between species, but never quite belonging to either. The vitrine accepted him now, but still saw him as other, contaminated. With cautious respect, but feared what he represented. "I don't know what I am anymore," he admitted. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "You're a bridge," she said. "You're the first of something new. That's terrifying and lonely, but also incredible. Stop trying to be what you were and figure out what you can become." The breakthrough came 2 months later. A civilian transport ship, the Meridian Hope, suffered catastrophic drive failure while crossing the outer rim. 300 colonists, bound for a new settlement, were adrift with life support failing. The nearest human facility was 4 weeks away, too far. Marcus received the distress call and immediately brought it to the Vitrine Council. "They're dying," he explained. "Their ship is breaking apart. They have maybe 72 hours before life support completely fails." "This is not our concern," an elder stated. "People, not ours." "They're 300 lives," Marcus countered. "Men, women, children, who did nothing wrong except be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If they land here, they will die," another elder pointed out. "Your people cannot survive our atmosphere." "But they could," Marcus said quietly, "if they were changed like I was." The chamber fell silent. Synthesis made a sharp chiming sound. "You cannot be suggesting," she started. "I'm suggesting we save them," Marcus interrupted. "Synthesis, you have enough sacred water. The Vitrine have the ability. We can offer them the same choice you gave me, transformation or death." "That is not a choice," an elder argued. "That is forcing change upon the unwilling." "Asking first is the difference," Marcus said. "I'm not saying transform them without permission. I'm saying contact the ship, explain the option, let them choose. Most will refuse." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but some won't. Some will choose life, even if it means becoming something different." The debate raged for hours. Finally, the lead elder made a decision. "We will extend the offer," they announced, "but only to volunteers, only to those who understand fully what they will become, and only if the human authorities approve this action." Marcus immediately contacted the Meridian Hope. The ship's captain, a tired-looking woman named Rodriguez, listened to his explanation with visible disbelief. "You're telling me that aliens can save us by turning us into hybrids," she said flatly. "Yes," Marcus confirmed. "I know how it sounds. I know what I'm asking. But I'm proof it works. I'm alive because the Vitrine changed me. It's not without cost." Rodriguez looked off, screen, clearly consulting with others. "Can they save?" she asked. "All of you," Marcus said. "If you all consent. But you need to understand, this is permanent. You won't be human anymore, not fully. You'll be able to live here on Zereth 7, but going back to Earth or any human world will be difficult. Your families will see you as changed, alien." Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "If we refuse," she asked, "what happens?" "You die," Marcus said bluntly. "All 300 of you." "Then it's not really a choice, is it?" she said bitterly. "It is," Marcus insisted. "Death is always a choice. Some people would rather die as they are than live as something else. I'm giving you the option to choose which you prefer." The decision took 6 hours. In the end, 247 colonists agreed to the transformation. 53 chose to take their chances with rescue, chose to remain human, even if it meant death. The Vitrine prepared for the largest transformation they had ever attempted. Synthesis led the effort, coordinating dozens of water keepers. They created a pool of sacred water in a specially grown chamber, large enough to immerse multiple people at once. The Meridian Hope survivors arrived in waves via shuttle, those who had chosen transformation and those who hadn't. Marcus met each group personally, explained the process, held the hands of crying children and terrified adults. Sarah was there too, documenting everything, but also helping, comforting, showing the human compassion that her father had almost forgotten he possessed. The transformations happened over 3 days. Marcus watched as people screamed and convulsed in the sacred water, watched as their skin took on metallic sheens, watched as their eyes became mirrors. He watched some emerge grateful and others emerge broken. Transform's 6-year-old daughter looked at Marcus with hollow eyes. "What have we become?" she asked. "Alive," Marcus told her gently. "You've become alive." The 53 who refused transformation were transported to a human medical ship that arrived on the 4th day. 41 of them survived the journey. 12 died, waiting for rescue. Marcus attended a memorial service held in the Human Habitat Dome. He stood beside Sarah and listened to names being read, felt the weight of choices and consequences. Afterward, as the transformed colonists began adapting to their new existence, Marcus walked through the settlement they were building. It wasn't human architecture, and it wasn't vitrine either. It was something new. Crystal structures grown in familiar shapes, doorways and rooms that made sense to carbon-based minds, but built with silicon-based materials. Children played in the streets, their metallic skin catching the orange sunlight. Adults worked alongside vitrine teachers, learning to sing to crystal, learning to process minerals. Sarah found him watching the construction. "You did this," she said. "You created something that shouldn't exist. A community of people who are neither human nor vitrine." "I saved them," Marcus corrected. "Or damned them, depending on how you look at it." "Both," Sarah agreed. "But they're alive to debate which." She took his hand, not bothered by the cold or the metallic texture. "I'm staying," she announced. "What?" Marcus turned to her in shock. "I'm requesting transformation," she said calmly. "I've thought about it for weeks, run every analysis, considered every implication. I want to stay here with you, help build this community, study what we're becoming." "No," Marcus said immediately, "absolutely not. You're human, Sarah, fully human. Have a life, a career, a future back on Earth," she countered. "I have a father here," she countered. "I have a chance to be part of something unprecedented," she declared. "I have a choice, Dad," she said. "The same choice you made," she added. "I didn't choose," Marcus argued. "I was dying," Marcus continued. "And I'll die eventually too," Sarah said. "We all do," she added. "But I can choose how I live first," she insisted. Marcus wanted to argue more, wanted to forbid it, wanted to protect his daughter from the pain of transformation. But he looked at her determined face and saw himself reflected there. The same stubborn refusal to accept limitations. The same willingness to sacrifice for something greater. "You're sure?" he asked quietly. "Completely," she replied. The transformation happened 3 days later. Marcus held Sarah's hand as Synthesis administered the sacred water. He felt every scream as if it were his own, watched his daughter's body convulse and change. When it was done, Sarah opened eyes that reflected light like polished silver. "Dad," she whispered, her voice carrying new harmonic undertones. "I can hear the crystals singing." Marcus pulled her close and held her while she adjusted to her new senses. Around them, the settlement continued to grow. The Changed, as they began calling themselves, were creating a new culture. They sang human songs in vitrine harmonies. They built crystal structures shaped like Earth architecture. They taught their children about both heritages, making them promise to remember. Marcus stood one evening at the boundary between crystal caves and human domes, Sarah beside him. Synthesis approached from the vitrine side, her crystalline form glowing in the fading light. "You have changed our world," Synthesis chimed. "We believed silicon and carbon could not coexist. You proved otherwise." "Admitted," I was just trying to survive. The greatest changes often begin that way, Synthesis observed. Sarah spoke up, her new voice still finding its rhythm. We're going to need teachers, she said. More Vitrine willing to work with the changed. More humans willing to visit and learn. We're building something here that both species need to see. A bridge, Marcus said, remembering Sarah's words from months before. We're building a bridge. He looked at his transformed daughter, at the alien friend who had saved him, at the settlement of changed humans, learning to sing to Crystal. He had lost his humanity and body when he crashed on this alien world. The sacred water had rewritten his biology, transformed him into something other. But standing here between worlds, teaching children who carried both carbon and silicon in their cells, Marcus realized something profound. He had never been more human than now. Not human in flesh, but human in spirit. In the choice to help instead of harm. In the courage to change instead of die. In the compassion to extend that choice to others. In the stubborn refusal to accept that difference meant impossible. His water had saved him, body and soul, and he was no longer human in the way he used to understand it. But perhaps that meant humanity was bigger than he had ever imagined. Perhaps humanity wasn't about what you were made of, but what you chose to do with the life you were given. Marcus Chen, captain, father, hybrid, bridge between worlds, finally understood what he had become. He had become himself.